The air at the National Rifle Shooting Competition was noisy. Emma, a quiet woman in plain clothes, walked to the sign-up table. Men in special shooting clothes looked at her. They did not think she belonged. One laughed. "This isn't a hobby fair," he said. The team captain, a serious man with medals on his shirt, came over. He looked at Emma. "You're not certified," he said in a flat voice. He was ready to send her away. A younger shooter nearby made fun of her. "Go home," he yelled. Emma stood tall. Her voice was quiet but strong. "I just want a chance," she said. "Just one shot." The captain looked irritated. People were watching. What would he do? Could this woman even shoot? Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments below. We love seeing how far stories like these can travel. The captain rubbed his chin, his brow furrowed. He didn't like this one bit. The competition rules were strict, meant to keep out those who weren't serious, who hadn't put in the work at certified clubs. But Emma's steady gaze held no fear, only a quiet plea that was hard to ignore completely, especially with curious eyes now watching. He let out a tired sigh. "All right," he grumbled, his voice sharp with impatience. "One shot. To prove you can even handle a rifle. Then you leave. Understand?" He waved a hand dismissively towards the firing line. "Use that spare rifle over there. One round. That's all you get." The younger shooter who had mocked her earlier let out a loud, fake cough that sounded very much like a laugh. Other men around him chuckled, their eyes following Emma with amusement as she walked to the line. They expected her to fumble, to look foolish. Emma picked up the rifle. It felt familiar in her hands, balanced, an extension of her own calm. The range was long, the standard competition distance. The target, a small black dot, looked tiny far away. She didn't rush. She didn't seem nervous at all. She settled the rifle but snugly against her shoulder, her cheek resting lightly on the cool wood of the stock. She breathed in deeply, then slowly let the air out. The usual noisy chatter of the range, the clanking of gear, the distant pop of other rifles, all seemed to fade away. In her mind there was only her, the rifle, and the distant, waiting target. She gently squeezed the trigger. The crack of the rifle shot echoed sharply across the range. For a long moment everyone just stared, holding their breath. Then, a small collective gasp went through the crowd as the result flashed on the monitor. The shot was perfect. Right in the exact dead center of the target. A tiny neat hole no bigger than a small coin marked her bullseye. An almost unnatural silence fell across the entire range. The men who had been laughing only moments before were completely quiet now. Their smug smiles had vanished, replaced with looks of disbelief. The captain's eyes widened just a fraction. His expression shifted from annoyed to genuinely surprised, though he tried to hide it quickly. He cleared his throat loudly. "Beginner's luck," he said, his voice attempting to sound firm and dismissive. "Just a lucky shot. Anyone can get lucky once. The rules are the rules. You're still not certified to compete in the main event." He turned away as if the matter was closed, expecting her to pick up her things and leave quietly. But Emma didn't move from her spot. She just looked at him, her expression unreadable, waiting. The silence stretched again, thicker this time, filled with unspoken questions. Some of the onlookers started to murmur among themselves. That was no ordinary lucky shot. The precision was too perfect. The crowd was now clearly divided. Some faces showed respect, even excitement. "Let her shoot again," someone called out from the back. "That was amazing," another added. But others shook their heads. "Rules are rules," an older man insisted, siding with the captain. "If we let her in, we have to let everyone in." The captain felt the pressure. His authority was being questioned subtly by that one perfect shot. He looked at Emma. She still hadn't said a word, her calm unnerving him more than any argument would have. He needed to regain control, but he also couldn't ignore the buzz she had created. He made a decision. "All right," he announced, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "You want to shoot? You can join. But not like the others. You'll shoot under pressure. 20 consecutive shots. Each one will be more difficult than the last." He paused. letting his conditions sink in. If you miss even a single shot, you're out. Immediately. No warm-up shots. No second tries on any stage. Those are my terms. He expected her to hesitate, to maybe even back down. This was a challenge designed to break even seasoned shooters. Emma simply nodded. "I accept," she said, her voice still quiet but clear. A ripple of surprise went through the crowd. The captain raised an eyebrow, then a small grim smile touched his lips. "Very well," he said. "Let's begin. First round, 3 targets at 150 meters. You have 60 seconds once the targets are presented." Emma moved back to the firing line. The spare rifle was still there. She picked it up again. 3 targets popped up in the distance. They were small, demanding precision. Emma raised the rifle, aimed, fired. Hit. She shifted slightly, aimed, fired again. Hit. One more. Aim, fire. Hit. 3 perfect shots, all within the time limit. A few competitors who had initially dismissed her started to pay real attention now. Phones began to appear, some people starting to record. This was getting interesting. One of the range officers, an experienced shooter himself, leaned over to another officer and whispered, his eyes fixed on Emma. "Who in the world trained her? I've never seen anything like it from an unknown." Emma, meanwhile, just waited for the next instruction, her expression unchanged, as if hitting 3 difficult targets under immense pressure was the most natural thing in the world for her. The air was thick with anticipation for what would come next. While Emma waited for the second stage, 2 officers were huddled in the small admin tent backstage. They were quickly checking her registration details, then running her name through their databases. "Anything?" one asked. The other shook his head, looking puzzled. "Nothing. No military service. No police academy. Not listed in any recognized shooting club. No record of any formal training or any known mentor. It's like she doesn't exist in the shooting world." The first officer frowned. "Then how?" He trailed off, looking back towards the range where Emma stood. The captain joined them, his face grim. He'd heard their exchange. The idea of an unknown, untrained woman showing up his experienced competitors and challenging the very structure of his competition was starting to make him feel more than just annoyed. He was beginning to feel threatened. If she succeeded, what would that say about all the certifications, the formal training, the hierarchy he believed in? He leaned in and whispered to one of the officers, a man known for being fiercely loyal to him. "Stage 3. Make sure she gets rifle number 7. The one with the calibration issue. The scope's a bit off. Enough to make anyone miss, especially under this kind of pressure." The officer nodded silently. Back on the range, Emma was called for stage 2. 5 shots, with a strong, gusty wind now blowing hard across the range, making conditions tricky. The targets were further out. Emma took her time, seeming to read the wind, adjusting her stance slightly. Then one by one she fired. Each shot was a clean hit. The crowd murmured with growing admiration. Even the difficult wind didn't seem to affect her. For stage 3, the officer approached her. "You'll use this rifle for the next set of targets," he said, handing her rifle number 7. Emma took it. As she brought it to her shoulder, she paused. Her brow furrowed just for a moment. Something felt off. She looked through the scope, then quickly down the barrel, then back through the scope. Without saying a word, she made a tiny, almost invisible adjustment to the scope's dials with her fingers. She then calmly took her aim at the new set of targets and fired. Another perfect shot. The captain, watching from the side, couldn't believe his eyes. The officer who had given her the rifle looked stunned. One of the younger cadets, the same one who had mocked her earlier, let out an involuntary whoa. He then, to his own surprise, found himself quietly cheering her on. "Come on," he muttered under his breath. Meanwhile, a female journalist who had been covering the standard competition saw the growing drama. She pulled out her phone and started a live stream. "Folks, you are not going to believe what's happening here at the Nationals," she said into her phone. "An unknown woman is putting on an incredible display." The stream quickly started to pick up viewers, then more, going viral within minutes. If you're loving this moment as much as we are, and you want to see if Emma can keep this incredible streak going, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what happens next. Emma was now at her 10th consecutive shot. Each one had been a bullseye. The crowd was completely silent every time she raised the rifle, then erupted in gasps and quiet cheers when her shot hit true. This 10th shot was the hardest one yet. A small moving clay target, released at a far range, designed to test reflexes and tracking ability. Most shooters needed several practice attempts to get the feel for such a target. Emma had none. The captain, his face now a mask of controlled frustration, decided to up the difficulty even more. "Release target on my mark," he barked to the operator, "and vary the angle. Don't make it predictable." He turned to Emma. "You'll have less prep time for this one. Target will launch 3 seconds after my call. Ready when you are." He was trying to rush her to break her calm rhythm. Emma simply nodded. She stood ready, the rifle held loosely at her side. "Mark!" the captain shouted. The clay pigeon shot out, flying fast at an unexpected angle. Emma moved with a smooth, unhurried grace. She raised the rifle, tracked the target for a split second, paused, breathed, and then fired. The clay disc exploded into a puff of orange dust against the blue sky. Perfect again. The crowd erupted. It wasn't just polite applause anymore. It was a roar of excitement and disbelief. Even other contestants, men who had trained for years for this day, were clapping, shaking their heads in amazement. One of them, a respected older shooter, walked up to Emma. He looked at her with genuine admiration. "Ma'am," he said, his voice full of respect, "you just beat my national record for consecutive precision hits under challenge conditions." Emma just gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. She didn't seem fazed by the record or the praise. But then, just as the cheering began to subside, a new figure stepped forward. He was tall, dressed in the latest tactical gear, his rifle looking like something out of a movie. This was Sergeant Rex Razor Miller, the lead sniper from the Army's elite shooting team, there as a guest demonstrator. He had been watching Emma with a look of intense calculation. He unslung his high-tech rifle. "Not bad," he said, his voice carrying easily over the quieted crowd. "Not bad at all. But hitting stationary targets, even tricky ones, is one thing. How about a real challenge? Me and you. Shot for shot. What do you say?" His eyes gleamed. He was used to being the best, the undisputed star. This was a direct challenge to Emma. Sergeant Razor Miller was confident, almost arrogant. He was a star in the shooting world, known for his speed and accuracy under pressure. He tried to intimidate Emma with his flashy gear, his expensive customized rifle, and his rapid-fire style of getting ready. He'd flick his rifle around with practiced ease, check his advanced optics with quick, jerky movements, all designed to show off and unnerve his opponent. Emma, in contrast, remained still and focused, her borrowed rifle looking plain beside his. The challenge was set. 5 ultra-fast, far-range pop-up targets. They would alternate turns. First Razor, then Emma. The targets would appear for only a few seconds each. Razor went first. He was incredibly fast. Snap crack. Snap crack. He hit his first target almost instantly. The crowd oohed. He smirked, then hit his second. Emma watched him, her expression unreadable. Then it was her turn. She raised her rifle. The target popped up. She fired. Hit. Just as fast as Razor, maybe even a touch smoother. No wasted motion. Razor's smirk faded a little. He hit his third target a bit too quickly, almost snatching at the trigger, but it was a hit. Emma's third shot was again perfect. Calm, precise. The crowd was completely silent now, watching the two of them. It was clear Emma wasn't just matching him. In some subtle way, her accuracy seemed more effortless, her speed more controlled. She wasn't just hitting the targets. She was hitting them dead center every time. Razor was up for his 4th shot. He was visibly trying too hard now, his movements a little too aggressive. The target appeared. He fired. Miss. A collective gasp went through the crowd. The small electronic sensor next to the target remained stubbornly green. He'd missed it by a hair, but a miss was a miss. Razor stared at the target, then at his rifle, his face flushing red. He couldn't believe it. Razor Miller had missed. Emma stepped up for her 4th shot. Target up. Crack. Bullseye. The contrast was stark. Razor, frustrated and angry, didn't even wait for the 5th round. He muttered something under his breath, slung his rifle over his shoulder with a jerk, and stormed off the range without a word or a look back. The crowd watched him go, then turned back to Emma. She didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She didn't even look in Razor's direction. She just reloaded her rifle, her movements economical and precise, calm, focused, ready for whatever came next. The duel was over and she had won, not just with skill, but with unshakable composure. The competition officials huddled. Emma had met every challenge, surpassed every expectation. There was only one stage left, a special exhibition stage that was more legend than standard practice, the 500-meter blind shot. The target was positioned far down the range, partially hidden behind a barrier, making it invisible from the shooting line without special instructions or immense skill in calculating trajectory over obstacles. Only one person in the history of the national competition had ever successfully landed this shot. It was considered almost impossible. The captain, his face now pale and visibly rattled, stepped forward. He knew this was it. If she made this shot, there would be no denying her. "All right, ma'am," he said, his voice strained. "The final stage. The history shot, as they call it. 500 meters. Target is behind the far barrier, specifics relayed by the spotter. One attempt." As Emma took her position, settling in for the incredibly difficult shot, the captain couldn't help himself. He started talking, seemingly giving instructions, but his tone was just a little too loud, his words chosen to distract. "Remember the wind from the west, but there's a dip in the terrain about halfway. Sometimes causes an updraft. Make sure you're not overcompensating." He kept up a running commentary, trying to break her concentration, to plant seeds of doubt in her mind. Emma seemed to tune it all out. The noise, the captain's voice, the expectant hush of the crowd, it all faded away. She closed her eyes for a brief moment. In her mind, she wasn't on this noisy, high-pressure range. She was back in the quiet woods years ago. She was a young girl, barely 10 years old. Her father, a man with kind eyes and calloused hands, was patiently teaching her to shoot. "Feel the rifle, Emma." His voice echoed in her memory. "Don't fight it. Breathe with it. See the shot before you take it. Trust yourself." She opened her eyes. The memory settled her, centered her. She took a slow, deep breath, let it out, and then with infinite care she squeezed the trigger. The rifle barked one last time. Everyone froze. Time seemed to stop. Then the electronic hit indicator on the far, unseen target flashed green. A direct hit. For a second there was dead silence. Then the cheers erupted, louder than ever before. It was a wave of sound, of pure astonishment and joy. People were jumping, shouting, hugging each other. They had witnessed history. Emma slowly lowered the rifle. She placed it carefully on the stand. She gave a small single nod, more to herself than to anyone else. Then she turned and began to walk away from the firing line, leaving the chaos of celebration behind her. As Emma walked away, the crowd surged forward, reporters and onlookers alike, all trying to get closer. Microphones were thrust in her face. Cameras flashed. "That was incredible," one journalist shouted. "Unbelievable. Where did you learn to shoot like that? Who trained you?" The questions came thick and fast. Emma paused for a moment, her quiet demeanor a stark contrast to the surrounding excitement. She looked at the eager faces. "My father," she said, her voice soft but clear, easily heard in a sudden lull. "He was a decorated war vet. He came home from the war and wanted peace. He taught me in the woods on our land. He said shooting wasn't about medals or glory. It was about focus, respect, and knowing yourself. We never needed any special clubs or papers." There was a hush as people absorbed her words. The story of a veteran father teaching his daughter in the quiet of nature added another layer to her incredible feat just then. The captain pushed his way through the crowd. He looked different now. The hardness in his eyes was gone, replaced by a look of grudging respect, perhaps even awe. He reached out his hand towards Emma. "Ma'am," he said, his voice humbled. I've never seen anything like it. You have my deepest respect. I was wrong." He offered her a handshake, a public admission of his misjudgment. Emma looked at his outstretched hand, then met his eyes. She didn't take his hand. "Thank you," she said politely, "but I didn't shoot to impress you, or to get your approval." Her gaze swept over the astonished crowd. "I shot because I could, because I wanted to." With that, she turned and continued her walk, moving calmly through the parting sea of people as cameras flashed around her like lightning. She didn't look back. She had proven her point not for them but for herself. A message slowly appeared on the giant screen above the range, which had been broadcasting the scores. She never needed a title to prove her aim. She just needed a chance. The crowd read it, and a new wave of understanding and applause rippled through them. They had witnessed more than just a shooting display. They had seen quiet strength triumph over doubt and prejudice. Emma had come for one shot, and she had changed everything. Miles away, a young girl sat glued to her tablet, watching the replay of Emma's final shot. Her eyes were wide with wonder. "Wow," she whispered to her mom. "I want to be like her." Emma, now back in the quiet of her small home, far from the cheering crowds and flashing cameras, took down an old worn set of dog tags from a hook on the wall. They were her father's. She held them for a moment, then hung them gently near the simple wooden rack where her own well-cared-for rifle rested. A small private tribute. Overnight, the video of her performance at the competition exploded online. 10 million views, then 20, then more. Comments poured in from all over the world, praising her skill, her calm, her quiet dignity. The next year, things were different at the National Rifle Shooting Competition. The organizers, after much debate and seeing the massive public interest Emma had generated, announced a significant change to their rules. The competition was now officially open to all civilians, certified or not, as long as they could pass a basic safety test. It was a big step. In a small, unassuming school gym in her local town, Emma was not practicing for more competitions. Instead, she was quietly training a small group of 5 young girls. They were her own unofficial rifle club. They listened intently as she spoke to them with the same quiet patience her father had shown her. The final image was of Emma, a soft smile on her face as one of the little girls, her brow furrowed in concentration, landed her very first bullseye on a paper target. The sound of the small .22 rifle was a gentle pop, but the girl's gasp of delight was huge. Emma knew this was a better victory than any medal.